Hey, sports fans, Sean Larkin here, your host of Retro Sports Hub podcast, where the past is always present. Thanks for checking us out. Make sure to subscribe to the channel wherever you may have found it, whether it be Podbean or over on Spotify. Haven't ventured over to Apple yet, but at some point I'll be doing that. But appreciate you subscribing and following that. You can also check me out at retrosportshub.com online, and I post my stuff on there as well. I do a blog on there, and do also post this podcast over there, as far as just having another place to find it, and have a news tab on there as well, just with more so just national news and that sort of thing, just to have as a resource on the website. So let's jump in. Kyle Macy is today's legend that I'm going to talk about. Growing up as a Kentucky fan, and I don't remember anything else other than Kentucky basketball. I was born in 71, and in 1978 they won the national title. And I have some memories of that. I mean, not necessarily as strong as memories from the other titles beyond that, but Kyle Macy was a pivotal part of that team, and just he was my favorite player growing up. And share a little bit of history about Kyle, and also just some of his statistical stuff, which you guys know if you listen to me at all, that I'm a big stats guy. It's just what I grew up. That's why I loved baseball when I was a kid. I loved the back of the baseball card and looking at the stats on there and comparing them to other players and just all that sort of thing. So it's all fun stuff for me. But a little history on Kyle Macy. Grew up in Peru, Indiana. Went to Peru High School. Sporty slip there. He signed with Purdue out of high school to play basketball there in the Big Ten at Purdue, and started 27 games there his freshman year, or played 27 games. I'm not sure if he started all of those or not. Stats are a little vague on that back then, but he averaged about 14 points a game. He actually, played a lot, played over 30 minutes a game. But when I was digging into that a little bit to find out, why did he transfer to Kentucky? His comment on that was it didn't feel like the discipline was there from the coach for the team. And I think that speaks volumes to Macy and what he was all about, and playing the game right and that sort of thing. And before I dive into all the stats and that fun stuff, this was after he was gone from UK, but I was in, I was probably 8th grade, maybe, I think, 7th, 8th grade timeline. I went to 2 of his summer camps at Georgetown College. And what's funny about those camps is the big memory I have, besides the dorm rooms being no air conditioning, hot, nasty, middle of summer, just unbearable. Really, you didn't want to be in the dorm rooms when you're at the camp. You wanted to be playing basketball. But when you were there, they were pretty miserable. But the one thing that I remember from those camps was just stuck out to me like crazy was his dad. Bob Macy was at the camp, and he would be walking around doing his thing. And, not necessarily as glamorous as what Cal's camp was like when I took my son, Zach, to that back in, 2016 or 17. I can't remember the timeline on it. Age is a fun thing, but remembering stuff. But the thing I remember about Bob Macy was that I saw him shoot a lot of shots from all over the court while I was there. I don't ever remember seeing him miss. It was just uncanny. And this is probably at that time, Macy was already pretty much, I think he was already gone from the NBA, or was at the tail end of his NBA career. So Bob Macy was definitely in his 50s, maybe 60s even. And so it was funny to see that. And the camps were, of course, really cool. It was over at Georgetown, as before Toyota. So there was really nothing else in Georgetown at that time other than the college and some other little stuff going on there. But so anyway, I just thought that was a fun little story to share about Kyle Macy. And also the other thing, growing up, as a Kentucky fan, of course, basketball is in the winter, and I love basketball, still do. Played all the time as much as I could, and we'd have snowstorm. I'd be over at my grandmother's house if we had snow, and I wanted to play basketball. I had to clear the driveway, so I would clear the driveway. And the thing, if you grew up following Kentucky and know anything about them, you know that Kyle Macy was a tremendous free throw shooter. I think he shot almost 90% for his career. And but the one thing, getting to that made him very unique is every time he would take a free throw, he would rub his hands. He'd put the ball between his shoes, rub his hands on his socks, and then shoot the free throw. And I practiced and practiced like that, shooting these free throws just like Kyle Macy. He was just an unbelievable player, but that was one of the traits of his that I thought was just awesome. And this is before the three-point shot. I mean, if they had a three-point shot back then, Macy's numbers would be much higher. Probably he averaged at UK about 14 and a half points a game, but he probably would have had close to, I would say, high teens, probably around 20 a game with the three-point shot, because he was just so proficient as a shooter. I mean, he was very similar as far as shooting percentages to what we saw with Reed Shepherd this year. Macy, just diving into his career stats, had a 52% from the field shooting percentage, about 89% free throws, 4.5 assists, that sort of thing. But 1978 is a team that 78 team that won the title with him and Roby and the Phillips, Goose Givens, that whole team winning the title that year. It was just an incredible run they had that year and winning the title, and over our nemesis Duke. And in the Elite Eight game, they actually beat Magic Johnson's Michigan State team to go on to that Final Four, beating Arkansas, and then also taking out Duke in the championship game. And just a tremendous run with that team and winning the title, and just something that Joe Hall needed to do with that team. He had a lot of pressure to win that year and get that title, because that team was phenomenal. Just unbelievable team. Macy played, I think, 31 games. He was a sophomore in that season, and ended up, and like I said, they ended up winning the title that year, and just have a tremendous place in Kentucky history for sure. Because one of the things that Joe Hall struggled with was just being in the shadow of Joe Hall, or Joe Hall being in his own shadow. Yeah, he did have a little bit of a weight on him, but no, just kidding. But in Adolph Rupp's shadow, coming off of being an assistant, also played under Rupp as a player, and then taking over the University of Kentucky program when Rupp retired. So he had a lot of pressure on him to win a title, and so he won that title with the Macy Givens Roby team. Roby was awesome in the championship game, but everybody remembers Jack Givens and just going nutso in the championship against Duke, and us winning the title that year. But as far as diving into some stats on Macy, he, like I said earlier, played 3 seasons at Kentucky and finished his career out in 79-80 season. What's interesting is back then, the NBA draft was a little bit different. He actually got drafted in the first round in the 79 draft the year while he was a junior, and decided to come back to Kentucky to play his last year. But they had the draft rights to him, so when he got done at Kentucky, he went to play for the Phoenix Suns, and his first season there was back in 80-81, and played for the Suns for, looks like 5 years. Played through the 85 season. Then he was traded, I believe, over to Chicago and played that 85-86 season with none other than Michael Jordan. And actually, Macy started almost every game that season for the Bulls, 79 of the 82 games. And what's interesting is, and this is kind of a fun note, if you follow any of the history of Michael Jordan in the 1980s, especially NBA, which I loved. In 86, Jordan, they couldn't get past the Celtics. Then it was the Pistons before they really made it big and won their first three-peat. But in 86, one of the games that Jordan had in the playoffs, he went crazy. And I think it was Macy actually said this, that he and Jordan combined for 70 points in the game against the Celtics in the playoffs. And of course, Jordan had 63 of those points, but I think it's pretty funny that he had mentioned it like that. But so he played 5 seasons with the Phoenix Suns, played a season with the Bulls, and then played his last season in the NBA with the Indiana Pacers, and then I believe he played 3 seasons over in Italy for pro team over there, and then retired after that 1990 season. And but his career at Kentucky was, not only did he win a national championship at Kentucky, but he also had a lot of other accolades as well. I mean, he finished his career, he was 21st in total points scored, a little over 1,400 points in 3 seasons at Kentucky. Finished number 6 in assists all time. 89% free throw shooting for career. There have been a couple of guys recently like Tyler Hero and Quigley, I believe, that had higher percentages than Macy, but and then Travis Ford was right around that number. But overall, one of probably the top 5 free throw shooters on that. Don't have that stat right in front of me, but he was also named All-American third team in 1978 by UPI, which was one of the news organizations back then. I don't believe they exist now. They're probably called something else now. 78, 79, he was also first team AP SEC All-American. Then 78, 79, 80 All-American as well, first team. Second team, I believe, in 78, 79. So a lot of career stats, a lot of just accolades there. His jersey is retired at Rupp Arena, number 4 hanging up in the rafters. Was Mr. Basketball before in his senior year at the state of Indiana in 1975. Was a parade All-American, these All-Americans that were in, so that's one of many All-Americans that played at the University of Kentucky. He's in the UK Athletic Hall of Fame. Lots of accolades for him, but for me, there was none better. He did it right, played the game the way it's supposed to be played, and had the pleasure of meeting him at a golf tournament a few years ago. And I had met him briefly as in a basketball camp, but there's like lots going on there. So it was cool to be able to get just a picture with Kyle out at I believe it was out at the UK club out off Leestown in Lexington. But where that tournament was at. My favorite player all time, for sure, probably second would be Jamal Mashburn, and at some point I'm sure I'll do a Legends podcast on Mash, but Kyle Macy, number 1 for me, and that's never going to change. It's one of those things, you grew up and just did it right, shot the ball right, passed it, played team ball. So he was the man for me back then, but thought I'd share some of this legend with you guys, and hope you've enjoyed some of the stats, some of the kind of side stories here. But make sure to subscribe to the podcast, tune us in, and I should have another Legends coming out. I'm trying to do one a week and trying to get more consistent on that. But thanks so much for checking me out today. Again, it's Sean Larkin, your host here at Retro Sports Hub Podcast. Thanks so much, and you guys have a great day, and we'll catch you next time around.